Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina, and I think we've all had the completely draining experience of having to deal with someone who is seemingly always negative and critical. No matter what is happening, it's just like they are scanning every situation for imperfections and flaws, and they are more than happy to point them out. It can even seem sometimes like they actually enjoy making people feel miserable, guilty, and self-conscious. And of course, the worst part can be when they begin to direct that criticism at us and our life, because no matter how unjustified that criticism really is, it can still be really hurtful. It can still fill us with self-doubt, shame, anxiety, anger, and resentment, and it can stress us out to the point where we don't even want to be around them. And honestly, when people act this way, it can just feel baffling, especially if we are someone who would never act this way and always make it a point to not put people down and to tell them things that could be uncomfortable in the most tactful and least hurtful way possible. We can really struggle to understand how someone could possibly think it's okay to simply tell us that we need to lose weight, or we need to pluck our eyebrows, or that we married the wrong person, or that we're not very good at our job, because these statements can feel really inappropriate and highly offensive, especially when they are delivered in a negative or hurtful way. So today I'm going to explain some of the most common reasons why people tend to do this and why they feel like this is acceptable behavior. Because I have found that understanding the root causes of critical behavior can help us to better handle critical people. But then I'm also going to share some strategies and tips to help us navigate these situations so that they don't continue to ruin our day and negatively affect our life. So the first reason can be low self-esteem. People with low self-esteem often criticize others in order to make themselves feel better. They may feel a need to put other people down or make them look bad in order to feel good about their own life. And these very people can sometimes look like they are extremely self-confident, but secretly that may not be the case. Their entire self-worth could be revolving around making sure that everyone else appears to be doing worse than they are. Now, the second thing can be unresolved issues. Critical behavior can sometimes stem from unresolved personal issues and past hurts. It can be a defense mechanism, a way for them to protect themselves from pain that they have experienced. Someone who's been harshly criticized in the past may be more likely to project that negativity onto others, even if it's unintended. And hurtful experiences can directly lead into critical behavior through a process called modeling. This is when we learn by observing the behavior of others. So if we grew up in a household where we always felt like we were being criticized, it is not unlikely that as adults, we are going to exhibit a lot more critical behavior. Now, another reason can be insecurity. People who are insecure are often driven to put other people down or to point out their flaws and imperfections as a way to protect themselves from feeling vulnerable. They may feel like they need to criticize other people to avoid being criticized themselves, because deep down they may feel like they deserve criticism for some reason, that really it's them who are imperfect or flawed. Critical people also tend to project their insecurities onto others, so they may actually criticize someone for the very things that they dislike about themselves. Now, the fourth reason can simply be different perspectives. We all have unique experiences, values, and perspectives that help shape how we perceive the world and how we interact with other people. So what may feel like harsh criticism to us could feel completely normal or even believed to be constructive feedback by someone else. Cultural norms and expectations can also play a huge role in critical behavior, because in some cultures, directness and bluntness is highly valued. It's actually a sign that you care about someone, whereas in other cultures, tactfulness and being a lot more indirect is what is considered to be much more acceptable. So there can be a big difference there. And even when there aren't cultural differences, sometimes just age can be a factor. How people talk to each other now is very different than in past generations. So sometimes when two people are speaking together that are from different generations, one of those people can walk away offended simply because of the way the other one naturally speaks. Another reason for this behavior can be habitual patterns. Believe it or not, being critical can become a habit if it's not addressed. People may not even realize that they're doing it or even mean anything bad by it. They may be just used to being in environments where this behavior has been acceptable or no one's ever called them out on it. So the behavior got reinforced or even rewarded. And unfortunately, the more this habit is reinforced or at least let slide by, the more likely people are to repeat this behavior and to continue being critical. Now, the next thing can be a lack of empathy. Sometimes people simply can't understand or empathize with the feelings of others. They may not be able to even see things from another person's perspective. They may live in an internal world where everything is black and white and really not be able to comprehend how anyone could have a different opinion or have different priorities. And when this happens, sometimes they can feel justified in being able to criticize or judge another person. Now, another issue can be need for control. People who are critical of others may try to actually control them through their criticism. They may feel like they know what's best for everyone, and when they don't do whatever it is they want, they can become highly judgmental and critical. So in that sense, it's almost like a manipulation tactic. They have this inner dialogue of, I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to criticize you in hopes that you're going to change your behavior. And something else that can inspire this behavior is the desire to be right. Critical people often have a strong desire to always appear right and correct in the eyes of other people. So they may become highly critical when you disagree with them or when they actually believe that you are wrong. And this is a topic that I have a full video about that I will go ahead and link down in the description box below, just in case you want to learn a little bit more about this tendency. But this can be especially common when someone feels insecure, jealous, or threatened. They can think in their mind that if they just criticize someone and make them look wrong, then they get to be right, even when that could not be further from the truth. Now, it is important to note that not all criticism is bad. Some criticism is constructive and helpful and given to us by people who genuinely care about us and want the best for us. They simply may not have the skills to be able to deliver that message tactfully. However, when it's used to hurt, put down, or control other people, then it really is harmful and it truly should not be tolerated. So let's quickly talk about some tips and strategies for dealing with these types of critical people. The first thing that we need to remember is not to take it personally. We have to understand that criticism is almost always a reflection of the other person's insecurities and not a reflection of us. We have to keep that in mind so we don't start to internalize their words or take them at face value. If we feel compelled to, we can scan their feedback for any elements of truth that may actually benefit us. But beyond that, we want to make sure that it really isn't seeping into our heart and simply try to let it go. The next thing we can do is to make sure that we are practicing self-compassion. When we do feel affected by criticism, it is so important that we are kind and loving with ourselves and that we remind ourselves of our strengths and our accomplishments. We never want the opinions of someone else or the criticisms and judgments of others to define us in any way. So it's so important that we remind ourselves of our true worth, which has nothing to do with the opinions of other people. It's also essential that we begin to set boundaries. If someone is constantly criticizing you, then enough is enough. You have to set boundaries. You have to let them know that you are no longer going to tolerate this behavior. Call them out on the criticism and let them know how this behavior is impacting you. Now, it is important to try to choose the right time and place, and it's helpful if neither one of you are stressed or angry when you are trying to communicate. It can also be important to find a private location where you can have this conversation without being interrupted. Be specific, give examples, but try not to be accusatory. It's better to focus on how this behavior is making you feel than to outright accuse them of being mean or insensitive. So for example, instead of saying something like, "You're always criticizing me," or "You always say the rudest things," you could say something like, "When you do criticize me, it makes me feel bad about myself," or "It makes me feel like I'm not good enough." These types of statements do tend to be a lot more effective. And lastly, we can simply choose to walk away. If after doing all of these things, the person is still being excessively critical, it is okay to walk away from the situation or to simply hang up the phone. As simple as that. It sends a very clear message. You do not have to continuously subject yourself to their negativity. And if the critical person absolutely refuses to change their behavior, we may also need to take a break from the relationship. And I know that can be a hard step to take, but sometimes it can be necessary to preserve our emotional well-being. Please know also that I do understand how difficult it can be dealing with someone who is so critical, but it's important to remember to never let the words of someone else define who we are as a person or how we feel about ourselves. In almost every circumstance, the criticisms of others have everything to do with them and nothing to do with us. So as always, I truly hope you found today's video to be helpful. If you did, please like it and share it with someone else who may need to hear the same message. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope the rest of your day is extraordinary.